All right, guys. Sean here with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Pocket Change Market Report, the midweek edition, September 13th, 2023. How are you guys doing today? Hopefully you guys are doing some cherry picking and some hunting out there, and you're finding some of the goods that are currently running rampant in our circulating coinage. So we're going to take a look at things here today. All the sales coming from eBay, of course. These represent the best, kind of like the trendiest coins, I would say. Now, there's a lot more to it. There's more layers to the market than what's being talked about today. In the video, we have about 28-ish listings to discuss. But these are all coins and currency that you can find currently out there in the wild today, all right, that you can turn around and make money off of. One of our biggest highlights this week has to be statehood quarter errors and varieties. None of them are very cheap, except maybe the first one we're going to talk about. But all in all, statehood quarter series of varieties and errors are all very well collected, and as a result, it's making a pretty big impact on the market. Anytime one of these shows up on eBay or possibly on Facebook Marketplace, like the buy-sell trade groups that we have on there, and anywhere else, they get picked up really quickly. And that's something I wanted to take some time to talk about today. In little doses, we have a few listings that fall within that kind of subject matter that we're going to talk about. All right. A few, ground rules like I normally talk about. All the coins are ungraded. We don't grade these things, folks. You just turn around and sell them and cash in. The cool thing about errors and varieties is they have their own attribution to them. Okay, if they are legitimately a specific type of error, if they are a variety, folks who collect into these, they'll know exactly if it's the real deal or not. So it's not like that you could, pull the wool over anyone's eyes in this particular segment of numismatics. Because the people that buy these certainly know their stuff. And, just know that. There's no reason to spend $20, $30, $40 a coin to grade these things with the expectation that they're going to be worth more numerical grade. It doesn't work out that way. These sell for themselves. And another thing to point out is that these listings, we're going to be using all of the original OG photos from each one. So that the seller's photos will be in full display here. You're going to see, the best and the worst of what we have to offer here from the eBay world. It's going to give you an idea of how low you could go with your photography in order to sell some of these. So, very important time to do these reports, by the way, as we head into the pivotal time of the year where a lot of people are cashing in their coin to get ready for the holidays. It's a foregone conclusion that that's going to happen, and we begin to see some pretty diverse caches, some old collections that maybe haven't been uncovered in 20, 30, 40 years. You just never know what you're going to find out there. So make sure you are participating in the hunt today if you're into it, and do not wait any longer. Begin to be active. Gaining the relationships down to a science with your local banks is going to be important as we head on through to October, November, and December. So we're almost there, a few weeks away. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Thank you guys for tuning in, and always appreciate your support in these videos. So we got good old Massachusetts here. 2000, and this is a Denver minted coin. Now, this is a error that I've come across myself on a few occasions. You can see that the obverse is very weakly struck, probably due to a strike through of a copious amount of grease that was applied to the die at that time. And again, mint employees, they put grease all over the place, so that way the machinery works like a well-oiled machine. There you go. And some of that grease can end up on the die face. I would say we see it more on both dies than we do just one side. Maybe that obverse die was replaced at some point while they retained the reverse die to continue on the striking procedures here. Now, we've seen these sell for about $15-20 in the past. I think people were just sleeping at the wheel at this one. It only ended up selling for $5 shipped. So, that's pretty crazy. But, I have seen other examples that are a lot more struck through than this one. And it's not double-sided. So those are a couple of the things that play against this coin. But if you do have it, just be cognizant that these have, some value. 20 times face value, as a matter of fact. So pretty nice one to start things off there. And also the American the Beautiful quarters are always going to be National Park, by the way. That's another word for these. There's a number of coins to be found here from a few attributed double to dies, like the Homestead quarter and a few others. And we also have errors like this on the Tuskegee Airman, the last issue from the ATB series. With the feeder finger strike through on the reverse, they called this a field restricted strike through, where there was some grease on the die face that ended up collecting a lot of debris and little bits of other things in there. So it's a hardened piece of grease, and it's pushed around by the feeder finger. All right, so in this particular case, it's just a well-placed strike through right on the Tuskegee Airmen headquarters on the reverse there, giving it the appearance that it was blown to bits in some catastrophic event during World War II. These used to be the hot topic 2 years ago. They were on a few occasions a coin that you could have easily sold for between $300 and $400 raw. They're not quite that much anymore, and albeit a lot of the coins are coming up circulated, so it's not like we're looking for or selling gem state kind of condition coins here. So this one still has some value. It ended up selling for $45.24, and that's about what you can ask for on this coin. There's a few spots on the obverse, again playing into the overall condition and grade of the coin, which still to this day matters even on errors and varieties. And one of my favorite dates, every time I come across this, it's pretty much a given that you are going to pick up the magnifier and look at the date and mint mark. There's always something to find here, folks. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of repunch mint marks to find on a large date 1960 Denver Lincoln Shield set. Now, this particular one here is really nice. I believe this is the FS502 in the Cherry Picker's Guide, but a really nice double D right under the date that you see there. So the secondary Denver mint mark was punched west of the primary. And again, these mint marks were applied by a long steel shaft by a mint employee. Then they tapped them in with a little hammer right on the working die. So if they accidentally tapped it and it was like too far over to where it should be, then they'll readjust and then just retap it, and then you'll come up to things like this. So this is a byproduct of a coin that was struck with that set of dies with the pretty phenomenal repunch mint mark on there. So this one right here sold for $26.11. The better the condition of the coin, the more that these sell for. Okay, so in the last few weeks, we've actually seen a few of the 1922 plain no mint mark Lincoln Wheat cents sell. And as we all can conclude, they are not very cheap. Even in the lowest grade levels, it's pretty much, if you don't get one now, regardless of what this coin looks like, all right, you're going to end up passing it over for one that's going to be in much better shape, and you're going to end up paying hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to own one. If you're a completionist, kind of like me, and you're putting together a Lincoln cent series from 1909 to the current date, a 1922 plain is going to cross your mind. And I tell a lot of folks, if you must, I would say buy the 22 first before you get into any other dates, especially if you're beginning to kind of work on the teens, 20s, and 30s. I would say try and find a 22 plain no mint mark the best that you can. Now, This particular one looks convincing, but you could see a little remnant of the Denver Mint mark on there. And keep in mind, these were only specifically made at the Denver Mint. They made no 1922s at Philadelphia or San Francisco. So this one is classified as the 1922 Week D variety. So there is a stronger, just regular 1922D. There's the Week D mint mark. And of course, these are all still paired up with those reverse dies that are very relevant. And in this particular case, this one has a really nice strong reverse, which makes it that much more desirable. So this one sold for $30.25 with 2 bids. Next one that we have here is, of course, a mainstay, a staple in the error community. Cut die breaks are one of the biggest, hottest trends going today. This time, 1947 Lincoln wheat cent. You can see the cut die break there at the base of Lincoln's bust, right around where the 7 o'clock position is on the obverse of the coin. Now, keep in mind that these are created when a piece of the die had cracked and fallen out, thereby leaving an empty cavity in the die right there. So when it strikes up the coins, all of the metal flow due to the pressure of the strike goes into the area of least resistance, which is that empty cavity, thereby creating a raised event, bubbly looking thing that you see here on this one. This one sold for $49.76 with 8 bids. Again, these are just powerhouses in the error community today. Sales are generally robust, and unless the thing is completely trashed, these will certainly have an outstanding result in any auction. Our first piece of currency is a beaut here. We have a 1934A $10 Fed Reserve note. The seller mentioned that this one was a misaligned print. And at first glance, you could see the obverse here and see that the overprint is slightly misaligned, but it's nothing really to write home to mother about. But when we look at the reverse there, you can see that the reverse print is a fair amount misaligned up north on the note there. So there was a sheet shift during the printing of the back of these notes. A very nice high-end example, too. I'd probably say this appears to be a crisp, uncirculated example. And that's been the big reason why it ended up selling for $67. It probably comes close to that without the misaligned print. But I would say this having this error on there, as minor as it is, certainly doesn't hurt either. And generally, you'll come across these on some of the older proof sets. This is a 1962 proof set, and you're never going to believe what happened to this one. I'll let you guys take a look at that here real closely. What do you see in that proof set that looks a little bit out of place? If you guess that A, there was no Jefferson nickel, and B, they inserted a second 1962 Lincoln cent, I'm going to say that you're correct. All right, so this is what we call packaging error. Even though it occurred at the Mint through a completely different department at the Mint, it's not considered a Mint error. This is a Mint packaging error, which are two different things. And that's why that, if we see coins that have like a crimping error, where the coin gets stuck in a spot where they were going to crimp the actual blister on that pack there, they'll actually crimp onto the coin and leave a pretty nice damaged impression of that cross-hatched crimp on there. So again, it's not a Mint error. These things were not done during the striking process, but these are still collected by certain groups of folks that look out for packaging errors, and this is another one that we see on occasion where they put two of the same denomination in there. This one sold for $34.80. Again, pretty cool that what we see there. It comes with the original envelope and the quality card as well. And the Extra V getting loads of play here today. There was actually probably about a dozen lots, all with it falling within the last 12 to 24 hours that ended up selling. So definitely no shortage of the Extra V 23 Lincoln Shields. And here's yet again another one right here. In case you needed a little bit of a refresher, that's that little V anomaly next to the designer initials on the base of Lincoln's bust. These are currently the trendiest things going in 2023. Still a strong seller. This example, by the way, sold for $80.25. Quick little buy it now scoop. And of course, if you do come across full bank boxes of Lincoln Cents, all of 1 year, that are brilliant uncirculated, keep in mind these sell for a lot more than face value. So if you grabbed one from the bank, and the first inclination is, man, I can't believe I just ended up with a full bank box of all single one date Lincoln Cents or nickels or whatever the case may be. Keep in mind these have what we call sealed equity value. So if you could handle to hold on to this box of 2022 Lincoln Cents, the price of the box will go up in value each and every single year. Okay, and then just due to attrition of these things, of course, there's not going to be an overabundance of these coins that are just going to sit in these boxes. They're actually going to be used by bank employees to fulfill orders for merchants. So the idea that these things, I've heard a couple people say, well, there's going to just be loads of these for many, many decades. I'm like, oh, no. That's not how it works. These things get turned and burned. And if they don't get saved by a private owner of a bank account through this institution, then they're going to get used by your favorite local Starbucks or McDonald's. So over time, these things do gather value. Like this is 1 year removed. The box ended up selling for $75. All right, so let's say in 5 years, it might be worth about 100, 125. In 10 years, they're going to be worth double that. Again, this is the low and slow method of gaining a little bit of wealth here by holding on to these. They're heavy and particularly bulky, but I'm sure there are other ways to invest money in. But if you add a few of these, yeah, don't be giving these away. They are worth money. Next one that we have here, one of the coolest coins I've seen in quite a while. This is a 1959D Lincoln Memorial Cent that was struck through a very late stage capped die. And I would venture to guess that the die cap that was stuck to that obverse die was shifting. It was beginning to break apart because you have a pretty strong strike of the word liberty there in certain areas. So yeah, this was a very late stage capped die that was falling apart right before our very eyes, but you can see for the most part lots of weakness still present here. $68.88 was the sale price on that bad boy there. 1970S, we don't talk about this one too often because not a lot of people encounter these in pocket change, but they are still out there. They're still in pretty nice shape like this one here, and they're still quite valuable. And that's the small date 1970S Lincoln Memorial Cent. Now, I don't have any close-ups of the date, and that's because the seller did not have one. But I could tell immediately that this is indeed the small date. This inner curl of the 9 that comes around right here points due east. So it actually points, and you could draw a line from that inner curl all throughout the middle of the 7 and 0. And that's what you want to see. The large date 1970S's, the curl stops at a certain point and it points down this way through the mid mark. I don't know if you guys had seen that before, but there are plenty of photos of this anomaly on attribution websites online. You can even just go do a Google search, 1970S small date Lincoln Cent. You can see plenty of photos and comparisons as well. So this one right here, folks, sold for $32 with 4 bids. It does have a little circulation wear. It's got a few fingerprints on it as well. Now, it looks off-center, but it really isn't. Only the obverse is off-center. And this is the same coin, all right? This is what they call misaligned dies error. And the obverse die, the hammer die, obviously struck this coin a little bit off-center because the die had a little bit of play. It needs to be tightened every so often, much like some of the components in our automobiles that we drive every day. Just general wear and tear will make things loose. So when it strikes the coin, that die has a little shake to it, a little shimmy, and it won't 100% strike the coin plumb, so that way they're both perfectly centered. Things like this will happen. Now, where misaligned dies are worth much more money is if it begins to cut off devices, and you can see that there in like the word liberty and trust and all that stuff, and it reaches all the way to the top of Jefferson's head. This one right here ended up selling for $16.10. These have a little ways to go. They're kind of underrated in my estimation. They're not worth nearly as much as a traditional off-center struck coin out of collar, but they are really cool to see, especially when you have the coin in hand. Now here's an off-center strike, this time a 1988P Roosevelt dime. It's off-center by about, I'd say 20% here on this one. $35.25 with 12 bids was the sale price on this one through auction. Pretty good powerhouse coin here. And Roosevelt dime off centers are a little bit tough. You don't see them as much as you do some of the other denoms. And this one's particularly cool as well. This was the big story coin of last year. This is the Wilma Mankiller American Women Quarter that features just the obverse retain cut die break. Although you have the earliest stages of the reverse was going to be a full-blown retain cut on there, you can see the die crack going from the rim through that star and then into the fields a little bit. That's actually going to be a precursor for something that is just particularly nasty on these. But all in all, it just has that obverse cut die break, as you can see there on top of Washington's head. $170.63 with 14 bids. Really good sale. Glad to see these are still strong. Here's another extra V. This time a much nicer condition previous to the other coin we saw. And it did sell for a little bit less. This one sold for $65. There you go. Same thing on this one. This one, by now, doesn't need too much more introduction. And this one, again, I didn't get in close because it's really easy to see here. This is the FS 101 1972 doubled die obverse Lincoln set. Look at the words Liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," and even the date. You can see all of that wild, crazy doubling. The notching is just unparalleled to anything else that's of a modern nature today. This one, with all of its issues, it looks clean. It's got spots all over it. This is not the prettiest looking example I've seen. Still did manage to pull in $377.25 with 4 bids this time. All right, our next piece of paper is a 1985 $1 bill. And then you'll look at this one and say, wow, there's not a thing wrong with it. Wrong. Look at the bottom left corner, you silly gooses. Yeah, this is a butterfly fold. So there was actually a fold in the subject sheet on the corner, and it went through the print process, and it went through the cutting process, and that corner was still folded over during the cutting as well. So when the corner fold or whatever isn't taken care of prior to the cutting, then, you know, it's going to do its thing like it is here. Very widely collected. The bigger the butterfly fold, the more expensive that these things are worth. This one sold for $80.25. This is considered like a baby butterfly on these notes. So nothing too crazy, but still cool to see. Well, case in point, guys. You want to know how much a BU roll of 1982 large date Lincoln cents are? Well, this is what is the remains of a full bank box by the seller. And this is a lot for one roll of BU 82 large dates. And it ended up selling for $17.95 a roll. If you did your math and you did $18 by 50, which is how many rolls come into a box, that's a lot of money. That's like $900, and that's for a non-sealed box. If this thing was sealed, wow, you'd probably be talking about maybe a $1,500 bag of coins or box of coins here. So if it's sealed, probably keep it sealed, because these things just continuously appreciate in value with each passing year. And as people are scooping up BU rolls to crack open, to find coins to grade or to find varieties, that's going to leave a much lower population of surviving BU rolls, which will in turn make these more expensive. So again, another PSA, keep this in mind. 2001P Roosevelt Dime, just a really nice broad struck example. So there was a collar issue here. It was either stuck or malfunction. So when it struck the coin without the collar, it's not going to keep the coin in place during that process. So all the metal flow goes outwards. This one sold for $64.74. It's always the well-struck, well-centered broad strikes that bring in the most amount of money, especially for nickels, dimes, and quarters. They're just incredible. And we also have another one here. This one I can tell you is a miscut. On a star note, out of all things, you guys know what a star is. It's a replacement note for, a quality control issue on another note. And here we are with star note error. The kind of like the perfect tandem. These things do not usually go hand in hand, and when you do see them, they're quite a rarity. And this one is in really nice shape. I bet you this one was discovered really early on. And this particular one ended up selling for $57. Kind of hard to see, but this is indeed a 1995 doubled die obverse Lincoln Memorial cent. The coin is in particularly circulated shape. Nothing too crazy, but as you guys know, the doubling is really easy to spot. Made easier with a 3 to 5x magnifying glass will do the trick. So this one right here in this condition sold for $31.05 with 8 bids. And we got some large coins on display. 1964 Kennedy half dollar with a couple clips on there. Wow, really nice one. And this is something we don't see too often, especially on a bigger denomination coin. So this one sold for $46.99. If you come across one of these at a coin shop, and I guarantee you there's going to be at least one shop out there that'll have something like this, and they just want to blow it out for $20, I would suggest buying it if you're a flipper. This is a really good one. Here's our off-center struck North Carolina statehood quarter, 2001P. And this is not like the craziest off-center strike either. This thing is like, 10% off-center, if that. And this one sold for $34.45. The same off-center strike on any other date of quarter would be worth half that. So again, this is just showing you the market, how much people covet these coins, and there are a group of folks out there that are collecting errors specifically on statehood quarter coins. And the more later dated they are, like once you get into like 2005 and beyond, they become really scarce and very expensive. Holy Clip Batman, 1996 Washington quarter. 3 clips this time around, so this one should be worth 3 times the money, right? Well, if one single clip sells for like $5 to $10, then we could conclude that this is probably closer to 30, right? And it was. It ended up selling for $30 on the button with 19 bids. And again, always great to see, and every clip is legit. You can see all the Blakesley effect on the coin. 1916, I believe, yes, 1916S Lincoln Wheat Cent. This one exhibits an improper alloy mix. So some of you who are old hands at the series know that the earlier dates of Lincolns, they actually created these planchets out of copper and a very small percentage of either tin or zinc. And they really don't mix and meld together as best as you think. So when these 2 metals or 3 metals are being mixed together in preparation for setting up these strips, you do get things like this, where you have a clear defined separation of the tin or zinc showing on the copper surface. Sometimes you can see these on both sides, which makes them doubly desired. And these are, they call these wood grain or woodies in the hobby. And they're quite nice. They're very attractive. I personally like them. This one right here sold for $16.24. This is still, again, one of the more underrated series that I think will eventually gain more interest with collectors over time. Only time will tell, right? And we got a few more lots here. This is a 1995 P Jefferson nickel that was struck through a late stage cap die that also had a split die as well. Just wow. We don't see these raw too often. Oftentimes these things end up in graded holders, even if it's just annex. Really phenomenal coin. Again, this thing has circulated a fair amount. You could see just some of the circulation wear on this one, along with some of the gunk that's in the devices. This one right here sold for $55.15. Yeah, someone put in one bid. So again, more people sleeping at the wheel. I've seen these things sell for in excess of $100 on any other given day. We talked about this one last time, 1944 Jefferson nickel. This is the Hennig counterfeit. This is a contemporary counterfeit. And as crazy as it seems, this is one of the cooler dates for the Hennig counterfeits because it's a war nickel date, 1944. And what do we know about this coin? It should have a big, huge mint mark above the dome in Monticello. This one does not have it. This is also one of the few dates where Hennig did not put his little looped R, which is his kind of like calling card. Counterfeiters that they love to, put something on the coin to show that it's their work. All right, they're kind of egomaniacs that way. And usually Hennig puts a little loop at the bottom leg of the R there on the left side. This one does not have it, and he didn't do a lot of them on 44s. So this one sold for $229.99. This particular segment of collecting is gaining tons of popularity as there are a few big players coming into the game. And the final coin of the day is this 1992 D Lincoln Memorial Cent with a raised cud die break on the reverse there. You can see that over there at the 9 o'clock position. The seller did not put very good photos up. So this is what we're working with, and again, pretty cool. It's pretty easy to see this one from about half a mile away, and the coin appears to be in pretty decent shape too. This one right here, folks, sold for $64.15 with 13 bids, and again, this is one that I haven't seen come up in the auction too much. It's actually quite scarce. Alright guys, video is for entertainment purposes only. Yeah, you know the drill, not financial advice. Please collect and or grade responsibly. If you don't do that, then you'll never have fun in this hobby, and you do not deserve to sell these coins that we talk about so much here on this video. So that's going to go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. Hopefully you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. I'm your host, Sean, with Blue Ridge Silverhound. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to today's content and the channel. And I thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy the hunt. Best of luck, and I shall see you on the next coin video. So long.